Now, ladies and gentlemen, it's time you've been waiting for. I know for a fact you didn't come here today for me. You came here for somebody else. You came here for a gentleman we all know, a gentleman with all respect, a gentleman we've been waiting to hear from all day. That gentleman is here now. A big round of applause to the leader of Advance UK, Ben Habib.
Well, there weren't any fireworks. How disappointing that must be for you. Now, we're in the business of serious politics. But before I get to that, can I just say, Nick, thank you very much for putting on today. I'd like to thank Francoise for also putting on today, making it all work. The security staff who have assured, at least my security, I hope they've assured everyone else's security as well. It's a sad thing that we need them, isn't it? But they do a brave job, so thank you very much for standing between us. But thank you most of all to you, the people who've come to Manchester today, people who've come from within Manchester to this hotel, to show your support and steadfast commitment to Advance UK and this country. Because, as quaint as the idea might sound, Advance UK is not a political party which is going to be the sort of organism that promotes itself over and above and to the detriment of the country. Advance UK is going to be a new kind of political party which actually stands firmly for the country. And let me just define quickly what I mean by the country. Some people are challenged even to define what it is that is the United Kingdom. But it is the United Kingdom of Great Britain, that's Scotland, Wales and England. I'm sorry about this, but it's important. Scotland, Wales and England, and Northern Ireland. No one, no part of this country, no individual in this country is going to be thrown under a bus in the hot pursuit of power. We are going to stand by every part of this country and for every person in this country. That is what Advance UK is fundamentally about. Now, when I realised that a new political force was required in this country, it was a sad moment because I thought I'd already found the political force that would save us. But sadly, that political force is slightly compromised. And I woke up one morning, I think it was in February this year, and realised, damn, I'm going to have to pick up this chalice and I'm going to have to launch a new political party, and as difficult as it sounds, I'm going to have to stand that test. And it's not what I expected to be doing in my 60th year on this planet. I'd worked pretty hard all my life, but it's something that was absolutely vital. And just a test, and perhaps secretly, if I can confide in you and the live stream, I set myself a test. Perhaps partly because I wanted to see whether there was a way out of this commitment, this burden I had to carry. I set ourselves, a target of 30,000 members. And I thought, well, if I can't get to 30,000 members, well, the British people don't want me, and I'm perfectly then at liberty to retire and go and sit on a beach with a cocktail and whatever else you have on the beach. No, I didn't say that. But remarkably, we got to 30,000 members in absolute record time. We soft launched the party on the 30th of June, and we got to 30,000 members on the 6th of September. And the hurdle of 30,000 had been set as a prerequisite to apply to the Electoral Commission. So on the 8th of September, which was a day later than some other party called Advance UK also applied. Some spoiler party. I wonder who initiated that little fiasco. Anyway, we applied on the 8th of September, and I'm very, very pleased to reveal today that we are no longer just a movement. We're not just a collective of people who see the danger the country's in and are going to stand firm to restore our country. I can confirm today that we are now a fully fledged political party. We're a fully fledged, registered political party, sadly only in Great Britain, because the state of our country requires that to stand in Northern Ireland, and we will be standing in Northern Ireland, requires a subsequent and additional application, another registration. That will be one of the first things we're going to change when we get into office. But here we are. We are now a political force. We can deliver a blow to the establishment at the electoral ballot box. And we will be delivering multiple blows. We stand against the establishment. We are, by that definition, a populist party, because we stand for the people of this country against an establishment that has repeatedly turned its back on the people. And Kendall, I'm so glad, Kendall, that you mentioned the European Union, because many people, even people on our side of the debate who should know better, have forgotten that when we voted to leave the European Union in 2016, it wasn't just a vote to leave the malignant organisation, the malignant anti-democratic organisation that is the EU. It was a vote to leave the global order, to restore power to this country, to renew our democracy, and to stand for all things British. That's what it was. And the establishment has turned its back on that repeatedly. And who in this room, this is the last thing on leaving the EU, because I know some people are wrongly exhausted, but who in this room, hands up if you think we've made a clean break with the EU? Not a single hand up. And we haven't. And that is something we must do if we want to restore this country. We have to leave the EU. You cannot have a sovereign, democratic United Kingdom if you're subject to laws made by a foreign parliament and adjudicated by foreign courts. And we are infected with that in a number of places. That will go under an advanced UK government. And the other thing that we will reacquaint ourselves with under an advanced UK government, and can I just say, Ricky, you spoke brilliantly. I was so moved by your speech. The other thing we're going to reacquaint ourselves with, as Ricky rightly said, is our Christian cultural and heritage. But there's one step further, which Ricky didn't mention, if you don't mind me saying so, Ricky, that is important that we must not forget. We're not just a Christian culture by heritage and history, we're a Christian country by constitution. Now, we don't have a written constitution because the way our constitution evolved was perhaps the most sophisticated, most delicate evolution of any constitution in the world. It turned on precedent, it turned on protocol, it turned on an understanding of who we are. Most of us in this room took that for granted. Tony Blair turned that on its head. Tony Blair, as you would have heard me say many times, is the devil of British politics. He set the foundations for the undermining of the country that we're now having to rescue. And one of the things that he very cleverly did was to bring the Human Rights Act into this country, which is the embodiment of the European Convention of Human Rights, on human rights, into the fabric of British law, and make the European Court of Human Rights the supreme adjudicating body. Does anyone know the name of any judges in the European Court of Human Rights? No, they have absolutely no authority here, but they adjudicate our human rights law. And in making that act, and empowering that court, what he did very quietly without people understanding it was set aside the meaning of what it means to be British. Because your citizenship, the privileges that go with citizenship, and indeed the obligations which go with citizenship, was set aside with this false notion that all humanity is equal, and that anyone in this country, whether they're foreign born or born in this country, British citizens or not, all people have the same rights. And of course, Advanced UK understands that there are certain rights that must be protected for all humanity, but that does not equate to setting aside British citizenship, which is what Blair did. And Starmer, and I'm just going to go back to our Christian constitution for a second, Starmer is... I got into trouble last time I supported that. I heard people saying you're confecting trouble, Ben, by saying things like that on stage, so I'm not going to repeat it, but if anyone else wants to repeat it, you're free to do so. No, the other thing that Starmer wants to do is to remove the bishopric from the House of Lords. Now, you might think this is a very esoteric point I'm bringing up, but it's not. It's absolutely fundamental. He wants to remove the bishopric from the House of Lords because he does away with our understanding that we're a British constitutional Christian country. That's why he wants to do it. And then it'll be a hop and a skip to saying constitutionally we're a multi-faith country. And once you become a multi-faith country and you don't understand what it means to be a British citizen, actually you set the country aside completely. And that is what their aim is. That is Starmer's aim. You would have heard me say, perhaps when I used to be on GB News, I'm no longer on GB News, you would have heard me say many times that Starmer is anti-British. And some people say that's inflammatory. It isn't. It's a statement of fact. He doesn't have confidence in this country. He doesn't have confidence in you. He wants to give governance entirely over to the European Union. He is resetting this already blooming awful deal that Boris Johnson put in place. He's resetting that to make it even worse. He's going to hand over more power to Brussels. He's already signed us up to their sanitary and phytosanitary standards, to their carbon taxing system. He is going to bring us closer and closer to Europe, including, and this is something we should all be very, very concerned about, the European Defence Union, European Defence Research, which is basically the funding and creation of an interoperable European army. And that won't be like NATO, which is the coming together of lots of great nations in this world for the defence of our common values. That will be an army under the direction of Brussels, controlled by Brussels because of interoperability. No single member state will be able to exercise total control over its military ever again. It'll be through this, the military will be bound by this interoperability controlled by Brussels. If you don't have a military and you're subject to foreign laws and you're subject to foreign courts, you don't understand what British citizenship is, you've turned your back on our constitutional Christian roots, what are we? We're nothing. And Advance stands against all of that. Now I thought I'd look up the definition of far right, because when I was growing up I thought I was really quite middle of the road. But Wikipedia took it upon itself, actually the day on which we launched, to classify us as far right. If you click on the link on Wikipedia, it says far right, but Advanced UK is a far right party. You click on that link, it takes you to an image of people wearing Nazi regalia. And nothing could be further from the truth. First of all, the Nazis were not a nationalist party. Even though this is a National Socialist Party, the Nazis were internationalists. They had a view that they wanted to go abroad, subjugate people, and kill them in their millions. It may surprise you to know Advance UK is not that kind of party. We care deeply about this country. We care deeply about our borders. We have no aspiration to go abroad and do anything, frankly. Right now, it's all about this country. But I went beyond Wiki, and I thought I'd have a look at the government website to see what far-right terrorism is. Because apparently people who protest after young, innocent British girls are killed, if people protest against that sort of thing, they're classified as far-right. So I wanted to know what that meant. Far-right terrorism, on the government website, is defined as those who promote far-right ideologies through violence. That makes sense because that's what the definition of terrorism is. Then it goes on to define what far-right ideologies are. And they include white supremacy, agreed, that's pretty far-right. Ethno-nationalism, which you touched on, Ricky, and we eschew ethno-nationalism. But there's a third category that it includes on the government website, which is cultural nationalism. In other words, if you believe in a settled culture for the United Kingdom, if you believe in this country, which is what nationalism is, they've managed to hijack the meaning of the word nationalism, but if you believe in the culture and nation state of the United Kingdom, you are far right. That is how bad it is. You are informed by the government of this country, an anti-British government, that if you believe in this country, you're far right. That is absolutely abominable. The task we have, ladies and gentlemen, is vast. We are on the precipice. We are facing a constitutional evisceration of our country, a cultural evisceration of our country, and of course when you don't look after your constitution, your culture and your people, you also inevitably end up in economic catastrophe, and we're facing an economic disaster. This Labour government has taken the principles of economic governance that's been applied to the UK ever since Tony Blair, which is essentially tax, borrow and spend, sit on aspiration, sit on wealth creation, make sure people don't get up in the morning feeling upbeat and wanting to go to work, make sure that they feel that they haven't got confidence, there's no ability for them to move forward without the protection of the government, empower the government, strip power away from private businesses, small businesses and the individual. That's the path we're on, and that is the destruction of our economy. And the IMF is not big enough to bail us out. I used to think maybe if we appeal to the IMF when the inevitable crash comes, and the crash is coming, be under no illusion that an economic crash is coming. This country doesn't have the dollar, which is the reserve currency of the world. People have to want to buy British government debt if the government is to finance itself. That means people have to want to buy sterling. If people will not buy sterling if we can't make ends meet, if we don't have genuine GDP per capita growth, if we're not a productive country, if we're not a country that is worth investing in. And we're very, very fast getting to that point. So we are faced with constitutional, cultural, and economic, I think you said decimation. It's a word that's colloquially used to describe a complete obliteration of the thing to which you apply. And decimation actually means 1/10. I think it's 9/10 of everything that's going to go. And the establishment is going to be against us in our mission. There is only one way we're going to get through this. Only one way. That is, if we act peaceably at all times, but we act absolutely firmly. We do not bend. We do not do this or that depending on what we need to say to avoid being cancelled. We will not be run by that yardstick in Advance UK. We will stand by our people and we will stand by our principles. Nothing will deviate us from our mission. And that's why I say that Advance UK is about serious, principled politics. So how are we going to do it? Well, first of all, as you probably know, we've established a college in Advance UK, and people are obviously free to apply to join the college. There's a process. And that college is already working on the policies required to restore our nation state, our Christian constitution, our genuine freedoms, freedom of speech, the removal of the indoctrination of our children, the reinstitution of our democracy, the removal of international laws, the removal of all the quangos, NGOs, regulatory bodies that have so undermined our democracy, and of course fundamentally equality under the law. Equality under the law is critical, because if you don't have equality under the law, you don't have justice. What you have is a legal system that is weaponized by the establishment. And it's no accident that Lamy wants to get rid of juries. Juries is at the heart of our democracy. It is the right to be judged by your peers. That is democracy. Our democracy ran through our courts. If you make it an entirely magistrate-based, judge-based court system, you don't have justice. What you have is the view of one individual. You're not being judged by your peers. And as you all know, we live in a two-tier criminal justice system where diversity, equity, and inclusion has infected not just our police, but the judiciary and so on and so forth. So we're going to remove all of that. And the policies for this, as I say, are being made by the college. But we're going to go one step further than policy creation. By the time we get to the general election, we will have a manifesto with all the policies, which will be coherent, they'll be holistic, they will interrelate, because when you deal with one issue, you have to deal with other issues, knock-on effects and so on. It's going to be very well integrated, our whole policy framework. But we will go with a manifesto that has draft legislation appended to it, orders of council and draft legislation, primary legislation. It's going to be the dullest document on the planet to read. But what it will do is give every British citizen who participates in the next election a clear view of precisely what it is an advanced UK government is going to do. We're not going to play any tricks with the electorate. We're not going to curry favour with them, get into office and hope that they trust us to do the right thing. We're going to absolutely put it out in a way which we won't even be able to deviate from, because it's so blooming clearly set out that we would have no option but to deliver it. And there's another reason I want to do that, not just to keep ourselves honest. I believe in our own ability to stay honest. But when we go into the Commons on that first day and we slap down this thud document of draft legislation, it won't be something we have to debate with our peers in the Commons or the Lords or with the civil service, because I will be able to say at the dispatch box, the British people have mandated me to deliver this agenda. I will have the democratic mandate. We will have a democratic mandate. Do not underestimate how critically important that is. It's vital. And that's why we've had constitutional. We used to be the bastion of stability. Do you remember? What was the most exciting thing that ever happened in the United Kingdom before Tony Blair? Afternoon tea might have been cold. That on the political stage. That was exciting back in those days. But now we can't hold the Prime Minister in popular regard for more than 6 months to 12 months. Why? Because every successive Prime Minister since 2016 has not delivered what the British people voted for in 2016 in any shape or form. And the first cabinet that we have, and this is critical, it's not just about policies and about draft legislation. The people who comprise the first cabinet have to be absolutely first-class people. They have to, each of them has to be a Hercules. Each of them has to be capable of marshalling, identifying the problems, marshalling the arguments against the problems, revealing the solutions for the problems, and then fearlessly delivering those solutions, not just at the dispatch box or on the telly or on social media, but to the civil servants, to the House of Lords, to anyone they have to cross swords with. They have to be first-class people. And we will deliver a first-class cabinet, because I am not in it for me. I am here reluctantly carrying a burden. I'm in it for the country, and I want every great person who similarly believes in this country to put their names forward. Come out, now that we're a fully fledged political party. Make yourselves known to me. Please, don't be shy. You must be brave. The time for thinking, I have the answers, I am capable, but actually it's all a bit of a hassle, has gone. If you care about this country, you now must come forward. And we have, as of yesterday, since we became a registered party, set up a new email address. Make a note of this, please. It's called standfor@advanceuk.org.uk. Standfor, STANDFOR, @advanceuk.org.uk. If you think you've got something to offer at a council level, in Parliament or beyond, please come forward. Don't be shy. And the last thing I want to say before I go to questions, which is my favourite bit, by the way, questions. Last thing I want to say is that we are very close to finalising and publishing our first policy. Who can guess what our first policy is going to be on? Well, that's not a policy, that's an imperative. It is immigration. It's immigration. And as Ricky so brilliantly articulated, there is not a single government in the last 30 years that had a mandate for mass migration. Did you ever see a manifesto which said, we're going to take our borders down, we're going to let in millions of people legally, and we're going to let in actually millions of people illegally as well. And then they're going to come to this country, we're going to welcome them with open arms, we're going to kick our veterans out of their accommodation, we're going to kick our cadets out of their accommodation, we're going to house these people who come to our country in four-star hotels, in our former military establishments. We're going to give them free dental care, free NHS, cash in their pockets, free food. Where did we vote for that? So, that is our first policy, and I hope that will be announced soon. Now, questions and answers. Nick, is this a good time for that? Yeah. How do you want to do it?